back, everybody. It's good to see you. We should be pals and friends by now because, hey, this is the fifth one of Luther, and we're looking at Luther's Catechism as well in a moment. That will happen after this, but we're finishing off a little bit of Luther and his life. Did you like the video? It's a great video, isn't it? If you haven't seen it yet, make sure that you see it. This is a time that we're coming in now, in October actually, when we celebrate the Reformation Sunday. Maybe your church is doing that. If not, Google Reformation Sunday, October 31st, 1517. What happened then? Well, you see, that was the moment at the beginning when I was saying that he nailed 95 theses, 95 protests against the church and nailed them to the door. Everyone read it, and that kind of created a big bang after that of, whoa, what is going to happen next? Well, it's not just about what we explored about what happened next. We've done that. But what about Luther's legacy? What has he left? That's our chapter. Luther's legacy, chapter 5. Well, as you open up, you can see a match. I see that as kind of like he lit a fuse, exploded. Well, it wasn't just all the politics that we talked about, but even a peasant revolt, because everyone was getting on the idea that, hey, this guy could actually help us to get out of all of this tyranny and this terror and this terrible life that they were living in. So you can just imagine that, with all this oppression on people, starting to talk about, hey, Luther is giving us this freedom, and it started to create this huge movement among the Protestants. Remember the Protestants? They were the ones who protested against that power and politics and the Vatican kind of stuff, as well as the peasants. And the peasants were ready to go and lynch all the kings, and, well, that's the sort of stuff that later on took place in places like France, when you think about it, and other places where they overthrew their powers. And Luther was sort of saying, no, it's not about overthrowing the powers. I just want people to get back to the Bible and live from that. But you see, once you lit something, people ran with it and did all sorts of other silly things with it. And of course, this created wars and everything else like that. You still have some of that actually in Ireland. When you think about the Catholics and the Protestants in Ireland, actually it comes back down to something like this. And so people didn't like each other and they hated each other simply because, well, again, power, politics, and in this case, the way that they thought the Bible would give them that control or that we would lose control. Isn't it interesting? It always comes down to stuff like that. But here we are, looking at what does that mean for the rest of us as we follow through those 500 years. You can read about that in here, where it talks about the small catechism, and then also the word Lutheran, what that meant, and the Augsburg Confessions. You see, in this chapter here that we're looking at, the Augsburg Confessions, all these other pastors and people who really thought, this is good stuff, we've got to put this together in a way that we can continue to teach it. So the small catechism is a way of teaching it, and the Augsburg Confession was a way of saying, we all agree that this is actually important. And what are the important points? Well, that's what we put together in the Augsburg Confession. It also is involved in the Book of Concord. Let me go and show you the Book of Concord. Ta-da! The Book of Concord. The Book of Concord, there you go, look at that. Book of Concord. Well, the Book of Concord is the Concord, as in we all agree upon this kind of statement, about all of these different statements that make us Lutherans. This is our confessional statements. So when people were arguing, well, what is it that you actually believe? Well, I put all of that together in writing, and you can read about it. So, coming back to this, you don't have to read a big book like that. But Luther then died. I mean, everything comes to a finish, and it's then handed over. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to just have the Bible, put it on a shelf, or like Luther, are we going to live what the Bible is inspiring us to do? Well, here on this page, with this fantastic little picture down here, I like that picture, but you can read number of the legacies that Luther left. Just check this out. We can thank Luther for these things. Not just the Bible in our language, but the following. Human rights. He was a champion on the rights for the ordinary common man. Remember the whole thing about the tyranny and the terror that was there? And he was a champion for the people, this small little fella. Educational reforms. He was the one who started getting people to learn, and the Bible, actually for a long time, was the textbook. People would learn how to read from the Bible, and then they would discuss the Bible, and they would learn things. Education was a big thing for Luther, and he brought that back into, look at how many Lutheran churches build schools. You ever wonder why? Luther. Anyway, marriage. He looked about marriage and the family and how important the home was in all of this. Priest of all believers. We talked a little bit about that. In other words, it's not about the establishment, those people with white robes and all that sort of stuff, but it was about you and me. We're the priesthood of all believers. Anyone who believes is part of God's priesthood. The word and worship was very important for Luther. And before that, you had a lot of chanting, you know, that sort of stuff. And he came and said, no, let's open up the Bible and talk about it. And so we have a different way of worshipping. We talk about it more in terms of the proclamation of the word. And we hear it and then we talk about it. So something else, justification by grace. That actually became a big sticking point and became the document that not so long ago between Catholics and Lutherans about the big issue. How are we justified? How are we made right with God? For Luther, it was, we are justified by God's grace. This is a gift. For everyone else, it was, no, you're justified by doing the right thing and, obeying our laws and everything else. And Luther said, no, it's a God thing. So you can have a look at some of the other ones as well. For instance, right down the bottom here, God's word as the final word almost. It's kind of like, for me, Luther discovered that the Bible is for real. It's not just some words. There's something really important about our life and our engagement with God's word. It changed him, didn't it? Now, remember, what does this mean? Actually, can you figure out why we've got this kind of a picture around there? What else is happening around October 30, 31st? What usually happens around there? I'm thinking pumpkins. I'm thinking pumpkin soup or something else. I don't know. Why am I thinking pumpkins? But anyway, that was actually because it was the Eve of All Saints, or Hallow Eve. Did I give it away? I don't know. But that date was the Reformation date. It changed everything. But have a look at this. Do a bit of quizzing and questioning and finding out and talking about it. Remember the Faith Fives and your little diary during the week. Have a look. You can write in your things that are happening to you. This is just a little diary thing for you. But then at the end of the week, sit down again, have a couple of quizzes and flick over, because next time when we get together, and that'll be our page, we're going to explore the 10 Commandments.